Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Gentlemen for Cinephiles. This is my week of saying I'm sorry to you guys for not being super good about posting content. So I am back super fast with a new episode for you. And in this episode, I kind of want to just talk about this alternate lens on Harry Potter and this kind of alternate way I really like to view Harry Potter, because it's something, I think it's an unsung strong point of Harry Potter, actually, the books and the movies. I'm particularly going to focus on the movies just by nature of the podcast, but this is also applicable in the books as well. So about a year ago, I filmed my second feature-length film, and it is a murder mystery, right? So when I was in the preliminary stages of the script and I was trying to kind of write through a detective and a mystery and a story, I stumbled upon, I think it was a podcast, and if I can find it, I'll link it in the description below, but I'm not 100% sure if I can. I don't remember if it was a podcast or a video essay, but it was talking about Harry Potter and mystery, and I listened through it, and it was just, it really got me out of a creative block. It got me out of a creative rut for sure in terms of this mystery film. And it framed the Harry Potter series and the Harry Potter narrative and kind of discussed the ways that at the end of the day, it's all just really good mystery stories. It's almost like a little Sherlock Holmes-esque, maybe I want to say. And yeah. So going into that, the one kind of figurehead that I was struggling with the most in terms of making this movie, it was the character of the detective and the dynamic of figuring out how someone, okay, so let me think of how to explain this without giving away my movie because it hasn't come out yet. So figuring out the dynamic of who did it, and trying to write that character in a way that doesn't give away that they did it, but when it's revealed that they did it, it makes sense, is a difficult balance to reach, because you want to give evidence to the fact that this person is guilty. However, you don't want to make that evidence so apparent that at the onset of the movie there's no point to the narrative events because it's so clear from the beginning, So it's that balance that Harry Potter kind of illuminated for me. And that whole balance lies in terms of it was something the podcast described as the silent villain, which was such an interesting concept to me because it's like, what does that mean? Like on the outset, it almost seems like a negative thing to do for your writing, because it's like, if you want to showcase somebody as guilty, why would you make them silent? But at the same time, in the background, you see this person doing these things and you see their guilt being illuminated. It's just in a way that isn't overt and isn't obvious, and the way Harry Potter utilizes red herrings. Like, if you even just think of the best way to describe it in terms of Harry Potter is the very first one, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone or the Philosopher's Stone, You're going through, and the theory the narrative is indulging heavily in is that Professor Snape is somehow a bad guy, right? However, behind the scenes you have Professor Quirrell, who is the silent villain, in that he's not necessarily doing things that make him seem guilty the first time you're watching, if you're not, suddenly suspicious of him. But when you find out that it's Quirrell, you're like, holy shit, yeah, it's Quirrell. So, that kind of relationship to a villain, to a hero. And it's just so interesting. That red herring relationship is just so interesting to me in terms of mystery. And then the second time this happens, or the second big time this happens, is in the third Harry Potter, where you see the narrative indulging in the red herring of Sirius Black being responsible for Harry Potter's parents' death. But then you have Peter Pettigrew revealed, and Peter Pettigrew being a silent villain in more ways than one. I mean, he's pretending to be a rat the whole time, but also at the same time, when all the evidence is laid out, you're like, oh my god, yes, it's pointing to this person. And that kind of mystery dynamic is so interesting, and I think it's a mystery dynamic that I haven't quite seen explored, and it's a relationship to red herring. Sorry if you hear that in the background, my little sister's ripping off a sticker on something. But I think that relationship between villain and red herring and who's innocent is an interesting mystery triad to create, and it's something that I see really explored in Harry Potter, but not really explored in a lot of other places. And Then There Were None is a book and piece of content that I've studied it and I've been influenced by for years and years. So, I mean, if you disagree with me, that's 100% fine. But when you're reading And Then There Were None, the villain is so silent that you need that note at the end to really illuminate who did it, because you're just left at such a loss by the end, you know? Whereas in Harry Potter, you're actively being told who's responsible, you just don't notice, which is very different, and it's a mystery subtlety and a genre subtlety that I don't think a lot of people... It's like a refinement of the genre, you know? It's like a little nitpicky difference, I suppose, in the two. I mean, even, like, if you look at mystery film, like, in a lot of ways, mystery film started in early silent film with things like The Lodger by Hitchcock. And even in The Lodger, this kind of relationship, you don't get a clear villain at the end like you do in Harry Potter. So it's not necessarily the same relationship to red herring. You know, you have this kind of like Lodger being framed as a Jack the Ripper-esque serial killer, but at the end you're not necessarily told if he is or he isn't. So it could be the kind of J.K. Rowling setup in mystery where, you know, he was the silent villain the entire time, but also at the same time it could be another option and it could be the innocent one. So I mean, you don't necessarily get as clear definitions. And in Harry Potter, I mean, Harry Potter and The Lodger are trying to reach vastly different audiences, so I think allowing mystery to have a silent villain as well as an innocent person and that being resolved at the end, it's completely fine in mystery. Like, I know a lot of people sometimes are like, no, films should be open at the end, you shouldn't know, blah blah blah, it shouldn't wrap up like a bow, but there is a place for that in cinema, 100%, and I think Harry Potter goes through that really well, and Harry Potter does that really well. And then also another thing that I really, really love about Harry Potter movies and that I really appreciate about them that I didn't really think about until I saw this podcast and I started rewatching some of the Harry Potter movies is at the end of the day, it's just a big whodunit, and it's like the cutest thing, and it's just like, it's almost like a Nancy Drew Hardy Boys like kind of setup where like there's a problem or there's a mystery that these three kids have to solve, and they do X, Y, and Z to solve it, and they're just investigating the whole time. And at the end of the day, that's like the cutest formula for this school about magical wizards. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think in a lot of ways that kind of dynamic and that kind of like simpleness, like it's like keep it simple, stupid. At the end of the day, the Harry Potter movies are really, really simple, masked in the complexity of the world building. So it's just like seeing how that functions is also really interesting, because I think it's a reason why so many people relate to it and why so many people connect to it, because at the end of the day, it's really simple, but it's really simple with all these other, I guess, selling points and all these other attractors to the actual story, which at the end of the day is not crazy, you know? Jasmine, do you have any thoughts? You're a huge Harry Potter fan.
I'm good.
But yeah, hopefully that wasn't too rambly. It's a little short and sweet, but I would love to know what you think of Harry Potter and mystery. I think that mystery is done excellently in Harry Potter, and I'd love for more people to come out and talk about it, because it's just, you know, it's so interesting, and in the way it formats mystery, and the way, you know, it's very archetypical, and it's very like by the books mystery is just so fascinating to me, and very well done. Not well done in the new movies, mind you. Like Crimes of Grindelwald, I'm still so confused as to how that happened. But you could just check out our daily on Crimes of Grindelwald when we went to see that. Sorry if you can hear that. That's a little pup running around, so just a heads up there. But I will see you guys in the next couple days for my week of apologies to you. My week of content to apologize. You can find us at Gentlemen for Cinephiles on Instagram, on Twitter, and on Facebook. You can listen to us on YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes. You can follow me at _RenaissanceWoman. Hopefully the episodes will be getting longer in the next coming weeks. You know, just stick around, subscribe, all that stuff. And thank you all so much. Mwah.